Rafadi sends a message to Mr. Matlala saying, any spare car I can use, ? Please.
Meanwhile, in Parliament, suspended Deputy Police Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya says the political killings task team should have been merged with the murder and robbery unit. Sibiya defended the disbanding of the task team, saying it only served a tiny portion of the country and should have been a national structure. He told Parliament's ad hoc committee investigating police corruption today that their intention was not to kill the task team but to rather redirect its resources. Sibiya also denied any unlawful involvement in the disbanding directive from Minister Senzo Mchunu, saying the decision to disband was National Commissioner Fani Masemola. Sibiya is currently wrapping up his evidence today before Minister Mchunu takes the stand on Thursday.
And we don't say political killing task team must die. We're saying we have now come up with a work study that says they must fall under murder and robbery unit so that the whole country can have a benefit of the expertise, to have expertise throughout the country to be able to fight this type of cases.
Cape Town Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis has hit back at President Cyril Ramaphosa for saying the city can't claim to be the best-run metro when the standard of services in its townships remains poor. Ramaphosa told the National Council of Provinces today that census data shows Cape Town performed the worst between 2011 and 2022 in providing services to the city's disadvantaged communities. The president added, while the city tends to perform well with financial governance, it has not demonstrated significant progress in reducing the levels of inequality and is spending less in poorer communities than in affluent areas. Hill-Lewis says Cape Town not only spends more on pro-poor infrastructure than the total capital budget of any other metro, the metro also has the highest levels of access to reliable service delivery.
The president is still trying to do damage control after he dared to speak the truth a couple of weeks ago when he said that Cape Town and other towns governed by the DA are examples to be emulated and copied. In fact, they are the only examples of progress and good governance in South Africa anywhere.
In Limpopo, one more person has succumbed to their injuries following a horrific bus crash on the N1 highway, bringing the death toll to 43. The accident happened on Sunday when the bus overturned while travelling on a steep road in Musina. Yesterday, emergency services worked into the late afternoon trying to remove people from underneath the bus. The provincial government says last night a male victim succumbed to his injuries while admitted at hospital. Provincial spokesperson Chilibali Mwaba.
It's quite a saddening moment where we have to be counting those numbers. We thought maybe we are done with those 42, but it seems as this one just caught us off guard. We're not expecting that. So this patient demise while admitted at Louis Trichardt Memorial Hospital.
And mining production marginally contracted by 0.2% year-on-year in August after expanding by an upwardly revised 5.1% in July. The outturn was weaker than market expectations. Stats SA released the latest mining data today. Principal survey statistician at Stats SA, Jean-Pierre Blanche, says production was dragged lower mainly by platinum group metals.
Nickel, copper, gold, manganese ore and chromium ore also recorded a weaker month. On the positive side, the industry produced more diamonds, coal and iron ore.
Terblanche says of these positive contributors, coal added 0.8 of a percentage point to the overall output.
On a month-on-month basis, seasonally adjusted mining production decreased for the first time in 6 months, declining by 1.2% in August compared with July.
Gold's trading at $4,141.12 an ounce. The rand's at 17.38 to the dollar, at 23.15 to the pound, at 20.17 to the euro. Brent crude oil's at $61.93 a barrel.
In your sport, we have kickoff in World Cup qualifying. Bafana playing Rwanda in a must-win encounter at the Mbombela Stadium, while Nigeria are live against Group C tabletoppers Benin. And when day 4 starts in the morning, the Proteas will need 226 runs to win the first test against Pakistan. They have 8 wickets in hand in their second innings.
A look at your weather. A fine Wednesday in store for Gauteng. Tomorrow, Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 15 degrees and peak at highs of 32. Pretoria is at 17 and 34. Vereeniging's also at lows of 17 degrees, reaching highs of 32. Partly cloudy skies for Cape Town with moderate southwesterly winds at a low of 13 and a high of 22 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. The University of the Free State says allowing students with outstanding debt to register is costing the institution over R1 billion.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. EWN Traffic.
Well, at this stage, if you're leaving Boksburg heading towards Brakpan, you can still expect about a 20-minute delay. This is on the N17 eastbound between Rondebolt and Carnival City due to ongoing roadworks. Also leaving Kelvin Alex area traveling towards Bedford View. There's bumper-to-bumper traffic on the N3 southbound between the Batuin Interchange and London Road. Also in the Midrand area, traffic is a bit sluggish. N1 northbound between Allendale Road and New Road, while in the Mother City, look out for an accident scene. N2 outbound. This is heading towards Airport Approach Road, causing some delays. Traffic is also slow on the M5 southbound. This is between Pinelands and Kenilworth. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072 702 1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show
With Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025. Bafana 1-0 up, just scoring in their crucial World Cup qualifier against Rwanda. Good evening, welcome to the program. 9 minutes after 6 the time, plenty to come. Watching the Bafana game for you, of course. You might well be driving, you might well be unable to keep an eye on the score. As you know, we have to beat Rwanda, we have to hope Nigeria do the business in their match, and then we still obviously have a strong chance of going through. But watching that game very closely, 1-0 currently to Bafana, a very, very well taken goal. A big debate over the last sort of a few days, sparked, I suppose, really by Business Live, Business Day front page story around the 1.8 trillion rand cash pile that companies seem to be sitting on. Lots of conversations. I mean, I remember doing this story, looking at this, I found a piece about it from 2013. I think even before then, there were arguments about this still going on. And tonight, just after 5 o'clock, as the JSE closed, Combined Motor Holdings putting out an update saying, look, they've got too much cash. They're actually going to do a pro rata sort of share repurchase rather than spend the money on anything else. They could, obviously, expand, invest in expansion, and presumably make more profits, but they don't see that happening. And that really gets you to the big question about confidence in the economy. Almost said confidence in Bafana, but that's a different story. We'll focus on that in a moment. Trevor Manuel spoke briefly about it to 702's Bongani Bingwa. You'll hear that in a moment. Kevin Lings and Lumkile Mondi, they'll be on the radio for you in just a moment. We'll talk also to Petro Ntaba, the spokesperson for the National Consumer Commission, in about 15 minutes from now. Big conversations again around our policy towards oil and gas exploration. I must just say, it's one thing to attack government and say the rules aren't clear, there's no policy certainty. All of that is probably true. It's also true, though, that if government were to try and make it easier or to just grant approvals, there would immediately be court cases. And you would have to change kind of our entire legal system, the idea of NGOs, individuals, people going to court to try and stop that from happening. So I don't know how far down the road you'll get, but we'll talk about it, and a lot more talk about what's happening with property prices in Cape Town. And for a while, I think people in Joburg have been sort of quite envious of people in Cape Town. Your property prices have been going up. Mine, not so much. But actually, I think now there's a sense that, well, now things have gone too far and locals are being priced out of the market. Big reporting recently about Sea Point, but it seems to be happening not quite across the board, but certainly across the seaboard. Bafana have a corner at the moment, so you'll just excuse me while if I do sound a little bit distracted. You with The Money Show, good to hear from you tonight. 011 883 0702 021 446 0567. Voice notes tonight on 072 702 1702. It's 1-0, 12 after 6.
The Money Show.
With Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
And DSTV channel 856.
I'm a bit curious about this announcement by Parks Tau, the DTIC minister, saying that the National Consumer Commission is going to sort of look at the scope of an investigation into e-commerce. And I'm curious about it for a couple of reasons. One, he seems to admit that this would all be about Temu and Shein, but he says the National Consumer Commission hasn't received a huge number of complaints about them. So why would you do that investigation? But also, the Competition Commission did a comprehensive investigation just 2-3 years ago. I remember speaking to the Competition Commission at the time. I'm sure you remember hearing them. So why would you do another investigation into e-commerce? What's the need? Unless there's something else going on? Let me put it to you like this. Have you bought products from Shein and Temu? Is there anything in the e-commerce market you think needs to be investigated? 072 702 1702 tonight.
702. Stephen is on X.
At Stephen Grootes.
Confirmation from the Reserve Bank that South African companies currently have 1.8 trillion rand in cash. Effectively, that's money that could be invested in expanding their companies and thus making bigger profits. It does seem, on the face of it, to be an indication of low levels of confidence in our economy. There is a big debate about the true level of the cash holdings of companies. The Reserve Bank put out an info sheet, and this is how they summed it up. And I'll quote, "The continued rise in deposits shows that companies are not merely stockpiling cash, they are responding to economic conditions and balancing risk with readiness to invest when confidence returns." That's the words of the Reserve Bank. I hope I got the tone right. The former Finance Minister, Trevor Manuel, he's now chair of Old Mutual. He has other jobs too. He spoke to Bongani Bingwa on 702 this morning. Bongani asked him about this money that's just sitting there.
That money is private money sitting there, underutilized. It may have been better put to work in industrial development, in the advancement of some new economic expansion. But, you know, money tends to be lazy, and so you avail all of that money to government debt. The owners of the capital are very happy because they know that they will get regular interest payments, and eventually the capital sum will be returned. So that's not a solution. We need to look at this issue rather differently, because we need economic expansion, but we also need opportunities for government to be able to borrow at reasonable rates and be able to repay.
Trevor Manuel speaking to 702's Bongani Bingwa this morning. Kevin Lings is the chief economist at Stanlib Asset Management. Kevin, good evening. It's a lot of money. Is it simple? Is it as simple as saying this shows that companies don't have confidence in our economy?
Evening, Stephen. Yeah, I think it is as simple as that, because if you look at a range of indicators, they all are pointing to the same thing. So it's not just that companies are sitting on a fair amount of cash. It's also got to do with how leveraged their balance sheet is. If you look at South Africa's corporate sector, their total debt is 31% of GDP. And that debt estimate includes the debt actually of Transnet, Eskom, etc. And if you take away that, it would fall well into the 20%. And if you compare that with government, which sits well over 70%, then you would say that corporates, certainly big corporates, have very little debt, or they haven't really leveraged their balance sheet. They're sitting on a decent amount of cash. They're being very conservative, and they are waiting for opportunities. Now, there's a huge amount of analysis that goes on around this type of estimate, but I see it in a positive way, because what would be the alternative? There are two alternatives. One is corporate. You run the same show and you say corporates are desperately in debt with no cash. That would be a terrible message going out about South African business. That's not the case, thank goodness. Or you would be doing a story that says South African corporates are investing increasingly offshore, taking their balance sheet and disinvesting from this country. That's certainly not happening. Instead, corporates are sitting on good, solid balance sheets. They've got decent management, and they're waiting for opportunities. Right now, they just don't have the confidence to exercise opportunities, because if you look around, a lot of the infrastructure is broken, and there are other factors that are inhibiting business from willing to expand for the future. So they manage their balance sheets effectively, and they sitting and waiting for a good opportunity.
They've been waiting a long time. I mean, at least
Yes.
13 years. That's a lot of opportunity to sort of give up or to just not have come along.
No, yeah, I would say it hasn't. So if you go back, so the confidence level will tell you that, right? So if you go back, so think about business confidence. It's measured on an index level. So anything above 50 is considered good confidence or positive. Anything below 50 is bad. We're sitting at 40 at the moment, so the confidence would be considered weak confidence, not disastrous, but weak. If you go back 20 years, our confidence level was at 80 on the same index point. And when it was up at 80, 2005, and we were building for the Soccer World Cup, there was massive investment, and corporates were leveraging their balance sheets, and they were finding opportunities. The economy was growing at over 4%. We're employing 500,000 new people a year. It was a good phase. But then the financial crisis hit, and that obviously hurt confidence around the world. And South Africa never really recovered from that because the politics changed and the policy environment changed. And then the decay started to set in terms of infrastructure. And so, yeah, it's been a long time period where confidence has been depressed. It hasn't been above the 50 index level now for almost, at least 15 years. And so corporates just haven't been able to get inspired to go out and expand and employ and invest.
Kevin Lings, thank you, Chief Economist at Stanlib Asset Management. Listening to that, Dr. Lumkile Mondi, the Senior Lecturer at the School of Economics and Business Sciences at Wits University. Lumkile, good evening. Companies are often accused of going on an investment strike when this story comes up. I mean, is that a fair criticism? Are they making a rational decision to hold on to their cash?
Absolutely. I think in the domestic and international environment, we find ourselves, it is the best strategy in terms of balance sheet management, as Kevin was saying. I think more importantly, Stephen, the destruction of infrastructure in South Africa, but also the lack of a strong political center, given that, there is no definite developmental agenda, given that we've got a government of national unity. And of course, the geopolitics and geoeconomics really are forcing, I think, companies to hold on cash to protect any value they have, which is an opportunity that if things turn, they've got such firepower to buy others, but also to expand in the rest of the continent and other areas with opportunity.
What would it take to unlock this money? I'm sure there's some political parties that would say, well, it'll take a change of government, but vote for us. I don't think it's about that necessarily. It would seem they need a real reassurance that it's not just the politics that's changed, or maybe something fundamentally else has changed.
I mean, if you look, for example, in the mining sector, the Anglo-American CEO, Duncan, was very clear about why they are moving and diversifying outside of Africa, because it is very, very difficult to do a lot of exploration in South Africa because the law just is not that progressive in comparison to other areas. But secondly, also the uncertainty in relation to black economic empowerment, as well as the land issue. All these issues remain unresolved. And they create a lot of uncertainty, both for domestic investors but international as well. So until we resolve and create certainty domestically in an environment that international also will be improving, I think we're going to be stuck here on a low gear for quite a while. That's why we need these issues domestically to be resolved as quickly as possible, so that at least we know the only constraint are the geoeconomic and geopolitics. But if they resolve themselves, South African companies can exploit them. But, it's all about us shooting ourselves in the foot by creating this uncertainty domestically, both on the BEE as well as in the mining sector on the exploration law, which is very difficult for companies at least to exploit in this environment.
Dr. Lumkile Mondi, thank you so much. Senior Lecturer at the School of Economics and Business Sciences at Wits University, 22 after 6.
702.
702.
Stephen is on the Money Show.
6 to 8 p.m.
A comment from the DTIC Minister, Parks Town, responds to a parliamentary question from the EFF that the National Consumer Mission is now going to scope the e-commerce market with a view to see if there does need to be an investigation, and particularly, it seems, into the impact of Temu and Shein in our textile sector. Temu is launching warehouses here. They'll supply customers more quickly. There are concerns that those two companies have taken a big share of our textile market. Petro Ntaba is the spokesperson at the National Consumer Commission. Petro, good evening. Thanks for your time. What exactly are you doing at this stage? What kind of investigation might you be looking at?
Good evening, Stephen. We have actually not investigated any service provider that operates online or that's in the e-commerce space. What we are currently doing at the National Consumer Commission, following what we have observed, though we don't have formal complaints, what we decided to do was to focus on e-commerce, basically to say what is it internally that we can do. We are still scoping which direction we want to take. We've got quite a lot of these service providers online, rather. Not necessarily the two that you have mentioned. We've got quite a lot, local and abroad. So what we are doing, based on our assessment and based on what our internal processes are going to say, we will be definitely taking steps. And we might issue compliance notices, we might investigate, but at the end of the day, we want to ensure that South African consumers are protected. There are also limitations here and there when you look at online shopping or retailers that are outside the Republic of South Africa. So this document that we are working on is actually going to guide us as to when it comes to those, what do we want to see? Do we want to see reform in as far as the law is concerned? Because at the end of the day, online or e-commerce is here to stay. We need to be ahead of things.
Might be a bit late for that, but Petro, let's just go back a step. What exactly is the point of investigating when you don't have any complaints?
Stephen, we are not investigating, right? What we are doing, we are looking at e-commerce holistically. Once we have established if there are contraventions or where there are contraventions of the CPA, that's where we are going to investigate. Our law actually allows us to initiate an investigation ourselves without even getting a complaint from the consumer, or basically based on what consumers' pain points are. We know consumers can complain on social media and the likes. Where we see a trend and we have satisfied ourselves that there are possibilities of contraventions of the law here, that's where we initiate an investigation. But at the moment, we have not initiated an investigation.
Okay, I mean, you said 2 minutes ago that you were definitely going to take steps, but you're doing that on no complaints. And Petro, I'm sorry to say this, but I don't think you can necessarily believe what you see on social media.
We can. We do believe what we see on social media. Remember, we gather that information, Stephen. Once we've gathered that information, we look at the provisions of the Consumer Protection Act. Where we see there are possibilities or possible contraventions, that's where we initiate an investigation. Remember, when we investigate, we are not saying someone has done something wrong, but we are saying there are something to look at here. We have done this with an airline where we did not receive a complaint from the consumer. It was based on what consumers were saying online. So we are saying internally, we are putting our heads together to say which direction do we want to take.
Okay.
If there are possible contraventions, we might issue complaints notices, we might investigate.
I mean, you're opening the field for companies to buy influencers against each other. But anyway, if a company comes to South Africa and offers customers lower prices, and if you get no complaints, it would seem to me quite bizarre to decide to do something about what is essentially nothing.
It's not about the price, right? There are other laws like the Competition Act, for example. But when it comes to the Consumer Protection Act, it's not about the price necessarily. It's about other practices, how they run competitions, how they, package their clothing, how safe are and the quality of those clothes as well. So it's not necessarily about competition or competition only. It's about the entire value chain of goods produced, labeling as well. Is it counterfeit, and all those things. Hence, I'm saying this paper that we are working on is actually going to guide us as to which direction the National Consumer Commission will be taking.
There was an investigation into the e-commerce sector by the Competition Commission. It was called the Online Intermediation Platforms Market Inquiry. It was held through most of 2022. I think it might have reported as late as 2023. I mean, aren't you going over the same ground as another investigation that just finished 2 years ago?
That was done by the Competition Commission using the Competition Act. If we are going to investigate, we will be using the Consumer Protection Act as the National Consumer Commission.
Okay, but I keep coming back to this, Peto. I completely understand why the commission exists. I completely support what you do. I just don't get why you would investigate when there are no complaints. I mean, that just... let me put it to you like this. Is the commission just trying to make work for itself?
No. There are two types of complaints, Stephen. There are formal complaints lodged with the NCC using formal procedures. There are complaints based on what consumers are saying online, right? Social media or any other platform. We do follow those. It's within the law to follow those pain points, and where we see possible contraventions, that's where we initiate an investigation as the National Consumer Commission. Whereas if we've received a complaint from a consumer, we look at those. If there are possible contraventions, of course, we do investigate as well. So in this case, we are observing what the market is saying, what consumers are saying, looking at the CPA, the various provisions of the consumer protection. That's why we are saying where there are possible contraventions, we initiate an investigation, not saying that particular supplier has done something wrong. We say it's a possible contravention. Okay. And of course, the investigation will then tell us or give us as to whether there are indeed contraventions or not.
Petro Ntaba, thank you. The spokesperson for the National Consumer Commission, 29 after 6, Bafana 2, Rwanda 0.
The Money Show.
The markets.
Beat that, Kwena Malelko, the equity research sales at Absa CIB. Kwena, obviously, good evening. Obviously, the US and China really having a big effect on our currency, but also on international markets.
Yeah, exactly, Stephen. It feels a bit like deja vu from the beginning of the year, right? So Trump comes out and gives us a big number on tariffs, 100% by November 1st. And then China retaliates, right? They have imposed sanctions on about 5 shipping companies, saying that, their US units have at least engaged in activities that threaten their security and development. So no surprises that the sort of risk assets have sold off, stocks, Bitcoin, all of that stuff. But within the equity market as well, I think you're seeing, especially in the S&P, sort of a rotation to more defensive names. So out of the very popular, let's call it AI tech growth names, into sort of safer stocks where, you feel that there's maybe a little bit less hurt that you can get from these tariffs. I think you're continuing to see it now because US Q3 earnings season has kicked off. The big banks came through. The numbers were actually better than what analysts thought they would be, but the share prices just did not react. So that kind of shows you how much risk off there is in the system at the moment. And it will probably stay this way until November.
Is risk off also why the Rand is suddenly so much weaker? I mean, it was doing very nicely towards the end of last week.
Exactly, right? We were sort of 17.10 and better. But I think you're right. All of that stuff sort of culminates and people start going back towards the safe haven. You see gold is now 4,100 an ounce. So I expect that to continue. But I think for ZAR, more importantly, is that we're heading into the mini budget. And what we've seen over the years is that the tax receipts are actually a lot better. So if we find that the spending hasn't been as aggressive and you have better fiscal deficits, then we're back in sort of that positive feedback loop of, a lower fiscal premium. Therefore, the bonds look better. Therefore, Rand gets better. And we kind of reap those benefits, hopefully.
And very quickly, we've got a Sanlam Capital Markets Day on Thursday.
Yes, exactly. Look, not many results for us, but I think what the market's looking towards for the Sanlam Capital Markets Day is, firstly, if you look at the performance of most insurance versus the banks, they've done really, really well. So the big question is, do they continue from this point onwards? And the point of Capital Markets Days is to let the market know these are sort of the long-term strategic targets that we want, and management goes into big detail in terms of how to achieve it. The market then decides whether those are reasonable or not. And I think Sanlam's done really, really well. They're doubling down on their sort of East Africa opportunity. So I suspect that's where people want to spend a lot of time, because that's probably the big growth driver for the next couple of years.
Kwena, thanks very much. Kwena Maloko, Equity Research Sales at ABSA CIB. Just after 6:30, Maki, good evening. The latest from Tshwane.
Thanks, Stephen. Good evening. The Tshwane municipality has completed an investigation looking into possible conflict of interest between Deputy Mayor Eugene Modise and one of the city's service providers. The internal investigation was launched earlier this year following complaints by the DA over a company with links to Modise scoring 100 million rand tenders. The company, Triotic Protection Services, has been contracted to guard some of the municipality's critical infrastructure. Tabiso Goba has more.
Eugene Modise has previously admitted to being one of the owners of Triotic Protection Services. However, he says he resigned from the company prior to becoming an ANC councillor in 2023. Tshwane Mayor Nasipi Moya has denied accusations from the DA that she is protecting her deputy by concealing the investigation report. She says the report is with the Speaker's office and protocol dictates he should be the one to table it before council.
The Speaker tried to convene a special meeting. He was then advised by his legal team that we are not sure about the process to follow here. Can we look for a legal advice? That legal advice, I think they are expecting it tomorrow, Wednesday. Our plan, and we've communicated this to the Speaker, we don't want to delay this any further.
Meanwhile, the DA has filed a motion of no confidence in Modise. Thabiso Goba, Eyewitness News.
Informal traders in Johannesburg's inner city are refusing to leave their trading spots after a visit by law enforcement agents who told them they're operating illegally. Earlier today, Joburg Mayor Dada Morero with Joburg Roads Agency and other officials visited De Villiers Street near Noord Taxi Rank. They were conducting inspections and checking compliance with city bylaws. The operation is part of the city's high-impact service delivery program, which aims to help revitalize the metro. Jabuli Lembata was there.
The informal traders along De Villiers and Plain Street here in Joburg CBD have put up makeshift tents and are using old cardboards as tables to sell various goods like fruit, vegetables and clothing on pavements. They say they were told to pack up because they are not allowed to trade on the pavements. However, as soon as the Mayor Dada Morero and his entourage left, block manager Bomusa Butelezi told traders to open up shop again.
Why do they pretend they don't know us? They have verified our documents and now they want to remove us. Is it because we are uneducated that they are now doing this to us?
When asked how they would ensure that traders leave, this is what Mayor Dada Morero had to say.
We have been here since the 2nd of October. We have agreed with the Johannesburg Metro Police Department. There will be officers deployed to enforce. So we will not experience that anymore.
He added that they would be back to clean up roads and ensure there are basic services like water supply. Jabuli Lembata, Eyewitness News.
Western Cape Premier Alan Winde says there was nothing sinister about his sponsored trip to attend Climate Week in New York last year. Winde was responding to the ANC's claims that his trip, funded by Under 2 Coalition, which he's a chairperson of, was not declared in the register of members' interests. The Under 2 Coalition is a global network of subnational governments committed to climate action. The provincial government says the sponsorship was a reimbursement for the costs it incurred for an economy class ticket to the US. Ntutuzela Nene has more.
The ANC in the provincial legislature, once Premier Winde's travel to New York, probed, claiming the donation for this trip was not declared as required by the legislature's code of conduct. However, the provincial government says the sponsorship money did not benefit the Premier, but was paid to the province's revenue fund. Winde tabled his department's annual report before the Standing Committee on the Premier and Constitutional Matters today.
I did see the press statement by the ANC. They say it's not declared. I say, here it is, it's declared. There's the income that came back post our visit. It's declared to the public via media. It's declared in a report to Cabinet, and it's declared in this document.
The provincial government says the donation was only received 6 months after the trip was undertaken. Ndutuzelo Nene, Eyewitness News.
I'll look at your weather. A fine Wednesday in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Temperatures will drop to overnight lows between 15 and 17 degrees and peak at highs between 32 and 34 degrees. Partly cloudy skies for the mother city with moderate southwesterly winds at a low of 13 and a high of 22 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News. The Tshwane municipality has completed an investigation looking into possible conflict of interest between Deputy Mayor Eugene Modise and one of the city's service providers.
EWN Traffic.
Well, leaving Boksburg heading towards Brakpan, roadworks still slowing down traffic. This is on the N17 eastbound between Rondebolt and Carnival City. Also slow moving traffic still leaving the Calvin Alex area. That's on the N3 southbound between the Butlu interchange and London Road, while in the mother city. We're still dealing with that accident seen on the N2 outbound. That's heading towards Airport Approach Road. Expect some delays through there. Also slow moving traffic N1 outbound between Foreshore and Belleville. Also bumper to bumper traffic on the M3 southbound between UCT and Newlands Avenue. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Beyond every boardroom is a story waiting to be written. A story of a business and its potential, of a community that thrives, a hospital that serves, and energy that powers millions of dreams. It's a story that only gets better with a partner that has the expertise and solutions to make it a reality. At ABSA CIB, we are invested in your story, and we invite you to write it with us, because your story matters. ABSA, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Huawei Watch GT6 Series, 2025's must-have smartwatch, introducing the king of power. Up to 21 days of unstoppable battery life in a sleek titanium and ceramic design that's as strong as it's stylish. The Trackmaster with 24/7 heart rate tracking, sleep monitoring, advanced health management, and the world's first cycling virtual power feature. Fully compatible with both iOS and Android. Get yours now from just 169 Rand a month over 36 months or 4,999 Rand at selected retailers. T's and C's apply.
To walk the talk is to turn words into meaningful actions. And it's what we at 702 are committed to doing every day. We are also committed to following the rules set out by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission's Code of Conduct. To give you balanced programming, fair comments, and accurate news. But if we stumble along the way and you feel we are not living up to the code, let us know on comment@702.co.za. And if after that you're still not happy, you can direct your complaint in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission. Email bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more, visit bccsa.co.za. EWN Sport.
20 minutes to 7. Oh, Anthony, I'm kind of holding my breath. I'm optimistic, but what's the latest?
Well, Stephen, good evening. It's 2-0 to Bafana against Rwanda in that World Cup qualifier. A blistering start and a strong showing in the first half from the South Africans against Rwanda. EWN Sports reporter Tolakele Mganga is watching it unfold at the Mbombela Stadium. Tolakele, how's it going so far?
Well, Anthony, South African fans can tentatively start contacting travel agencies. That's because with a few minutes to go until halftime, they lead Rwanda 2-0. That's in their final 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifier. Khaled Mbata netted in the first minute, followed by Osho Napalis just after the half-hour mark to give Bafana the advantage. Added to that, it would seem the footballing gods are finally smiling down on South Africa, as in Uyo log leaders Benin are losing 2-0 to Nigeria in the other Group C match. That's thanks to a brace from Victor Osimhen. If results stay this way until full time, it'll be Bafana that qualify for a first World Cup since 2002. And that also ensures that Hugo Broos will end his coaching career with one final appearance at the Global Showcase event. Tolakele Mganga, EWN Sports, reporting live from Mbombela Stadium in Alfred.
Well, let's switch now to the cricket, where the Proteas will have 2 days to score a further 226 runs for victory in the first test against Pakistan. They reached day 3 stumps at 51 for 2 in their second innings. Tony Dazorzi starting the day at the crease, where he scored a second test century and then ended it at the crease again in that second innings on 16 alongside Ryan Rickleton on 29. The batter says it's been tough to get his eye in on the wicket.
First 30 balls were not great. I was just trying my best to hang in there, hoping that it would turn. Obviously, I rode my luck, and to be honest, I was batting with Rickleton, and he was batting superbly. I laughed at myself a couple of times. My son asked me to play straight. I told him I'm trying, but eventually it turned a bit my way. But these were tough conditions. The team was in a bit of trouble, and I was happy that I could contribute in some way, and hopefully myself and Ricks can build on it tomorrow.
16 wickets fell throughout the day, with Suryan Mutusamy claiming a second 5-wicket haul of the match as he ended with career best figures in a test match, and the second Proteas spinner since readmission to collect over 10 wickets in a match. He ended with 11 for 174 across the two innings, and rain ruined the day's action at the Women's Cricket World Cup with no result between Sri Lanka and New Zealand. A final look at that score sees Bafana leading 2-0 with 3 minutes to play in the first half. Anthony Teixeira, Eyewitness News Sport.
WhatsApp Stephen
on 072
702
1702.
Anthony, thank you. Obviously watching those two matches, both on in front of me, Bafana, and of course never really been so strongly in Nigeria's corner, I must just tell you. 17 minutes to 7 the time. Voice notes coming through tonight. We've been talking about the Competition Commission. Voice notes, as you know, on 072 702 1702.
Good evening, Stephen. So listening to your chat with consumer protection investigations, honestly, I think this is just to show them that they need to be relevant. Find fault where there are none. We need more competition in South Africa in order to get the best pricing. That's what we all know. So this is, again, just to show that they've got the power and to be relevant.
All right, thank you for that. I'm going to make two other secondary points. The first comes from Jaap. Jaap has messaged us on the WhatsApp line saying, Stephen, isn't there a link between your two first stories? Companies are not investing because they're unable to compete with cheap Chinese imports that are killing the local economy. Time for government to start protecting the local economy, ? Says Jaap. And I would add to what you say, Jaap, I'm not a big fan of protectionism, by the way. Obviously, one's views on protectionism do change over time and from case to case, but I'm not a big fan, generally speaking. It would make clothes more expensive, for example, and many people battle to find the money to put clothes on their children. Would help if they grew more slowly. At the same time, I'm reminded of what Dr. Martin Davis, the China expert, told us on the Money Show last night. He said, you have to understand what's happening in China, which is that they have so much surplus capacity, they have to produce the stuff and sell it somewhere. And that's what's happening. And he said that's essentially what the trade war between the US and China is. The rest of the world has sort of almost given up. And that, to an extent, is what's happening here too. And that's where Shein and Temu come in. That excess capacity is essentially being exported to us in the form of clothes or furniture or whatever it is. And that is something that we do need to look at. It does mean then, if that is the case, and you'll know Martin Davis, he's really been around the block many times, knows his stuff, you would think then that there's almost no answer to that until someone comes up with a model that undercuts China. Ideas on a postcard, please, 7:15.
You could spend 10 minutes hunting for the TV remote or get a 10-minute quote from Outsurance that could save you thousands on your car insurance. For her 2024 Kia Picanto, 52-year-old Janine now only pays 561 Rand a month. And for her 2025 Jetour Dashing, 29-year-old Sana pays just 796 Rand a month. Ready to get more out of your car insurance? SMS out to 45142. That's out to 45142. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
If this ad caught your ear, imagine what Prime Media can do for your business. With South Africa's leading media company, your message reaches the right audiences across radio, digital audio, video, and display. The Prime Impact Sales Event is coming to Joburg 3 to 7 November and Cape Town 10 to 13 November. Register today for a free demo commercial, a custom campaign, and unbeatable annual partnerships. Seats are limited. Secure yours now at primeimpact.co.za.
Small businesses are anything but small. They're the backbone of our communities, the dreamers, the doers, the ones who keep Mzansi moving forward. That's why 702 and Capitec Business Banking are putting them in the spotlight. Every Thursday between 6 and 8 p.m., catch Small Business Focus with Capitec, where we showcase the hustle, heart, and the secrets to thriving in today's economy. Your vision matters, and with Capitec, you're never building it alone. Small Business Focus with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Thursdays between 6 and 8 p.m. on 702. Capitec Bank is an authorized FSP 46669.
702. Stephen is on X.
At Stephen Grootes.
I don't know if you've heard a little bit of noise from Namibia over the last few weeks, and what seems to be, might be, the start of an energy boom there. More companies are getting permission to drill for oil. If you can imagine what would happen to that economy, and perhaps the economy of Southern Africa, if in fact there was suddenly an oil or gas boom in Namibia, a country with a very similar history to ours, by the way, and very similar problems, including very high levels of youth unemployment. It does lead to questions around our policy. Ross Compton is the Senior Director of Global Policy at Energio Alliance. That organization's just done a comprehensive investigation or survey or analysis, if you like, about our policy. Ross, good evening to you and thank you for your time. We've seen some exploration for oil and gas in South Africa. There have been a lot of regulatory challenges. They seem to have stopped. Drilling for oil here for the moment. What impact do you think drilling for oil is going to have in Namibia? I imagine it would do great things for their economy.
Well, good evening, Stephen. Thank you very much for having me on the show. Very much appreciate that. As you say, the report that we've published recently highlights some of the comparisons between South Africa and other nations with a focus on the potential in Namibia. And as you say, there's a lot of excitement there around the oil and gas exploration sector. They're in the relatively early stages at the moment, but they've had some significant discoveries in recent years and are on the cusp, if you will, of moving on to the production phases. And it's already had a tangible impact in country. So as you mentioned, it's having some positive economic impacts already. So the GDP has gone to over 4% in 2023, and that's very positive. There's already some signs of improvements to employment in the sector, even though it's in those early stages, and as it moves into the production phases, there's a lot of potential for growth of GDP and, of course, expansion of the workforce, both skilled and unskilled, in support of the wider sector.
Is it possible to quantify what the impact on our economy would do if regulation was kept at a sort of absolute minimum? I mean, if someone literally blew the whistle and said to the oil companies, go for it, is it possible at all to quantify what it would do for us?
Well, we've got some, very early estimates. It is difficult to say based on where we are at the moment. Obviously, in South Africa, we're slightly earlier stages, but from the Utaniqua Basin, which is probably the furthest along, so Block 11B, 12B, where there's a significant discovery there, our estimates show, the potential contribution to GDP would be around 23 billion rand annually. And in terms of employment, anywhere from approximately 2,500 directly created jobs and trickle-down effect of approximately 20,000 jobs more widely in support services and so on. And if you look at the sector more broadly, beyond that one example, there's obviously a lot more potential there, particularly in terms of employment, with estimates of anywhere between sort of 20 and 50,000, again, split between skilled within the sector and unskilled, very much supporting the various different parts of the supply chain for oil and gas development. So a lot of potential there, I would say. And at the moment, it's losing out to the nearest neighbour, Namibia, being that little bit further along and a bit more stable in their policy framework.
There are limits to what our government can control. So perhaps our government could make the process easier if it wanted to. This is all very contested, Ross. I mean, there's a strong arguments from the other side, and we've heard those on the Money Show in the past. Our government, if they chose to, could possibly make it easier, possibly do away with some of the regulations. But in the end, a lot of the opposition here, as I'm sure you're aware, hasn't come from government or their regulations. It's come from ordinary people, NGOs, who've gone to court to stop drilling, to stop exploration, to stop sound waves being used for exploration purposes by ships offshore. That's not something government can really do anything about.
Yeah, you're quite right, and government has been quite supportive in general, and there are regulatory changes in process at the moment. The Upstream Petroleum Resources Development Act was signed into law earlier this year. We're waiting for the regulations off the back of that. All of those help as they are developed over time to provide a bit more certainty to industry that has perhaps been lacking in the past. But you're quite right to bring up some of the concerns raised by civil society, be those related to the operations themselves or climate concerns more generally. I think a lot of it is based on, in some cases, outdated understanding of the state of science, and we've done a lot to work with stakeholders to promote an understanding of the best available science that's available in relation to things like seismic surveys, those very early stages of exploration, and how they can be very compatible with thriving marine ecosystems. We're used to conducting these within important areas in the North Sea and the Norwegian Sea and so on, where these are daily occurrences. And, the fishing sector is still very active, and the marine ecosystem is very active because there are careful controls in place that companies have to follow. With regard to the climate concerns you raise, I think what I would say to that is, South Africa, as an example, has a very coal-dependent energy system, as you're well aware, providing something like 80% of current electricity. And so there's a significant potential for natural gas in particular actually to provide not just an energy security benefit, but also a climate benefit, because it has approximately half the carbon intensity of coal, for example. So, understand those concerns, but actually there's a very positive side to this as well. And what I would say is it's also important that there is a diverse energy mix. It's not about playing off one form of energy against another. There are significant energy needs in South Africa, as with many other countries. So it's more about energy additions than it is division between different types, I would say, because we need all of the above, from oil and gas through to growth in the renewable sector as well.
Ross Compton, thank you, is the Senior Director of Global Policy at the Energeo Alliance. And obviously you've heard the other side of this argument many times. There's an example, a good example perhaps, of trade-offs when it comes to economic policy around exploration, and just also kind of the situation that we're in right now. 6 minutes to 7.
Change is an unannounced visitor. It can derail you or delight you. It's pushy, inescapable, intriguing. Change is motivating. Change is action. Change has places for you to be. Change is opportunity. We always have our door open to it. For over 3 decades, we've been committed to seeking out the best investment opportunities for you, wherever they may be. 91. Investing for a world of change. 91 is an authorized FSP.
At Anglo American, we mine more than minerals. We mine possibility and progress with purpose. For over a century, we have been part of South Africa's story, investing in our country's potential and unlocking opportunities together. This year alone, through our Kumba Iron Ore business, we've invested 25.9 billion rand into South Africa. This includes infrastructure development, education and healthcare, community upliftment, and more. Follow us on our social media channels, Anglo American South Africa, and join the conversation. Anglo American, mining potential, building beyond.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025.
Half-time in those two crucial World Cup qualifier games. Bafana 2-0 up against Rwanda. Nigeria up 2-0 against Benin as well. 45 minutes to play for. 5 minutes to 7. Well, new figures seem to confirm something that I suppose many people wanting to move to Cape Town have found out for themselves. Cape Town property prices have absolutely skyrocketed to the point now where I think the conversation is becoming about whether some suburbs like Sea Point have just become too expensive for local people to live in. In fact, one company suggests that people from outside the country have spent over 1 billion rand in Cape Town just this year. Grant Smee is the CEO of the Only Realty Property Group. Grant, good evening. We've seen, obviously, a lot of money going into Cape Town property over the last few years. Things seem to have picked up speed recently.
Evening. Definitely. I mean, I think it's well known that Cape Town property and Western Cape property has really been the dominant force in the property sector in South Africa for a long period, and it's continued that trend, and more recently has certainly been more aggressive.
I mean, we've known for years, maybe even generations, that Clifton is the preserve of people who buy property in other currencies. Has something shifted? I mean, is that kind of dynamic now moving out to other parts of Cape Town?
Yeah, certainly. I think there's a limited supply of stock, particularly in the areas like Camps Bay, Clifton, and those sorts of areas. And it certainly has moved out towards other areas. The Western Seaboard showing, which is sort of the Bloberg Mulport space, has shown remarkable sort of price increases over time. And I think it's just the reality of pricing in the Camps Bay or Atlantic Seaboard areas being relatively unaffordable, but wealthy South Africans still looking to move to Western Cape and Cape Town and benefit from a lot of the advantages of being there.
How big a factor is the Airbnb business? So it's people who buy a property and they expressly want to rent it out for a short-term lease. They want to rent it out for people who are there on holiday.
Yeah, so it certainly had a big impact in property prices in the Cape Town CBD, Atlantic Seaboard, Sea Point, 3 Point areas. It has certainly had an impact there, and it sort of explains a little bit of the acceleration of prices in those areas. It's also then had an impact sort of in other areas, Stellenbosch, Somerset West, as well as the Western Seaboard as well, where it certainly increased prices. But I think the biggest impact it's had is actually the increase of long-term rental prices, as there's been more and more units moving into short-term. Long-term price availability or long-term rental unit availability has become limited, and therefore prices have gone up.
We've seen, Cape Town's had a low-income housing shortage for many years. We saw this during the pandemic. It's intensified. That's one of the reasons there's so many informal settlements. There's so much pressure in places like Khayelitsha too. This becomes, at some point, almost impossible for local government to manage, certainly much harder than perhaps it's ever been before, this one particular dynamic.
Yeah, I think, affordable housing has been an issue, particularly where the land is so valuable. I know the West Cape government and the City of Cape Town have certainly focused on that in terms of developments coming into the area and working with developers closely in the private sector to increase affordable housing to sort of offset the impact of these increasing property prices and value of land.
So when property prices go up like this, and I know that Cape Town's changed its system, so the value of the land that you're on is now a factor in how much you actually pay. But I would like to think that all of these people who are paying all of this money for these most incredible properties are actually paying more to the council. That, in fact, the council will benefit, and therefore, I'd like to hope, but this is probably not the case, that people in Khayelitsha benefit too in some way.
Yeah, so definitely your price of your property and the value of your property in its entirety does impact your municipal valuation, which then does impact your rates. So they are paying higher rates, and the city has imposed recently cleaning tariffs and other tariffs that sort of impact the more expensive properties to then benefit the city overall. So I think there is certainly a move by the mayor and the council here to make sure that everybody's paying their part, but everybody benefits from the payments of the many.
Grant Smee, thanks very much indeed, CEO of the Only Realty Property Group on The Money Show. Plenty to come in the next little while. Obviously, watching Bafana is half time. We will talk a little bit more about ESG. We'll hear from Rotendo Windingwi, and also looking forward to Warren Ingram. He'll be in our studio tonight talking about life assurance. Good evening, you're with The Money Show. It's 7 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Maki Malapo. Suspended Deputy Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya says the allegations of corruption against him are part of an internal succession battle within the South African police. He says the whole case against him is an attempt to block his rise within the police's senior management and in the country's law enforcement agencies. Sibiya was defending himself against allegations of corruption and undue influence during the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee investigating police malfeasance made by KwaZulu-Natal top cop Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Babalo Ndenzo has more.
Shadrack Sibiya is wrapping up his testimony today after facing a barrage of questions from MPs on the political killings task team, as well as the purchasing of intelligence gathering equipment. Part of his evidence also saw Sibiya denying allegations that he had any inappropriate meetings with controversial businessmen Brown Mkhotsi and Vusumuzi Kat Matlala. Sibiya was questioned by DA MP Glenys Breitenbach on the reasons behind the internal rift within the police.
Is this a battle for the top job when Masamala retired?
Sibiya agrees that the allegations are nothing more than internal battles within SAPS.
This has got nothing to do with the 121 dockets and the disbandment of the political killing task team. This, according to me, it's about the succession battle within the police.
Sibiya's testimony will conclude today, with Minister Senzo Mchunu to take the stand on Thursday. Babalo Ndenze, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
We move to the Free State, where the University of the Free State says allowing students with outstanding debt to register is costing the institution over R1 billion. As a result, management has announced that students owing the institution more than R20,000 cannot register for the 2026 academic year. This has sparked a second week of violent protests, with a notice for students to vacate the Qwaqwa campus within 24 hours. Jabli Lembata has more.
Students are currently leaving the campus after the university shut down learning. The institution will engage student representatives tomorrow in a bid to resolve matters. Student leader Mcebo Hlati says the situation is calm.
What's currently happening is that a number of students are still going out, but the number is reduced compared to in the early hours, because taking into consideration that others have probably went, those who can afford, and those who are left behind.
Students are adamant they want the university to scrap its decision. Jabuli Limbata, Eyewitness News.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has moved to clarify that he's not related to corruption-accused businessman Hangwani Maumela. Ramaphosa has told the National Council of Provinces today that while he was married to Maumela's aunt more than 40 years ago, he does not consider him a relative, nor has he had any extensive interaction with him. Yesterday, the presidency said Ramaphosa happened to pass by Maumela's house on his regular walks, but that there was no connection between its owner and Ramaphosa. Lindsay Dentlinger has more.
In a detailed response to a question from the ANC's Onika Madupe, President Cyril Ramaphosa said as far back as 2022, when the DA's John Steenhuisen first asked whether he knew Hangwani Maumela, he said no, because it's the truth. Ramaphosa has explained that a video recorded in December 2024 of him greeting Maumela's mother outside the now infamous house was taken during one of his regular walks past the property in the company of his daughter. Ramaphosa said he realized on that occasion that he knew Maumela's mother from their school days.
His aunt, who is my former wife of 47 years ago, is his aunt. And he is really not my relative as such. So I have encountered him, and you can make what you like of it. Do I deal with him? No.
Ramaphosa says he's appalled by the allegations against Maumela and that he built a mansion ostensibly from money meant for public health care. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
An investigation report looking into potential misconduct and conflict of interest by Tshwane Deputy Mayor Eugene Modise is expected to be tabled before council by the end of the month. The municipality launched an internal probe against Modise earlier this month after the DA accused him of doing business with the city through the security company Triotic Protection Services. While Modise has admitted to owning the company, he says he resigned from its list of directors prior to becoming an ANC councillor. Speaking at an event in Pretoria yesterday, Modise said he's looking forward to the report being made public.
So those allegations are false, but now they realize that what they were pushing is false. Now they are trying political gimmicks which won't assist. We are waiting for the speaker to call council so that we can expose their lies to the residents of Tshwane.
And mining production marginally contracted by 0.2% year-on-year in August after expanding by an upwardly revised 5.1% in July. The outturn was weaker than market expectations. Stats SA released the latest mining data today. Principal survey statistician at Stats SA, Jean-Pierre Terblanche, says production was dragged lower mainly by platinum group metals.
Nickel, copper, gold, manganese ore and chromium ore also recorded a weaker month. On the positive side, the industry produced more diamonds, coal and iron ore.
Terblanche says of these positive contributors, coal added 0.8 of a percentage point to the overall output.
On a month-on-month basis, seasonally adjusted mining production decreased for the first time in 6 months, declining by 1.2% in August compared with July.
And an elite Madagascar military unit has today said it has taken power of the Indian Ocean nation after the National Assembly voted to impeach President Andry Rajoelina following weeks of anti-government protests. Rajoelina, who was in hiding reportedly out of the country, had late yesterday refused demands to step down from a protest movement that started last month and won the backing of the CAPSAT military unit at the weekend. CAPSAT commander Colonel Michael Randranirina read out a statement at the presidential palace suspending the constitution and saying the unit would set up a governing committee composed of officers from the army and the national police. The constitutional court said later it confirmed his authority and declared the presidency vacant. Under Madagascar's constitution, the top court must validate the president's impeachment for it to take effect. But the presidency denounced the military's action as a clear act of attempted coup that it did not accept. Gold's trading at $4,146.43 an ounce. The rand's at 17.35 to the dollar, at 23.12 to the pound, at 20.14 to the euro. Brent crude oil at $62.46 a barrel.
Well, at this stage, if you're heading towards Boksburg, there's still slow-moving traffic due to roadworks. This is on the N17 eastbound between Rondebolt and Carnival City. Also, in the mother city, there's slow-moving traffic on the M3 southbound between UCT and Newlands Avenue. And finally, there's also bumper-to-bumper traffic M5 southbound between Pinelands and Kenilworth.
A look at your weather. Clear skies in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 15 degrees and peak at highs of 32. Pretoria is at 17 and 34. Vereeniging will drop to temperatures of lows of 17 and reach at highs of 32. Partly cloudy skies for Cape Town with moderate southwesterly winds at a low of 13 and a high of 22 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. Suspended Deputy Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya says the allegations of corruption against him are part of an internal succession battle within the South African police.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025. Why am I getting my nerves muddled? Because obviously keeping an eye on Bafana. 2-0 up against Rwanda right now. Nigeria 2-0 up against Benin. Fingers crossed, hold breath, which would make for great radio. You do all of those things and Bafana should be through to the World Cup for the first time in, I can't even remember. Too scared to actually count the years as to when it was the last time this happened. So watching both of those games very, very closely. Voice notes, if you like, on those games too, please, on 072-702-1702. We'll be talking about ESG in just a moment. Obviously, talking about environment, social and governance reporting. A lot of talk about it. It's going to become mandatory, it would seem, and the impact that's going to have in companies. Dr. Rutendo Ndingwi, he's here already, the founding director of Tribe Africa Advisory, looking at what's happening on our continent. And Warren Ingram will be in our studio from 7:30. We'll talk about life assurance tonight. 9 minutes after 7. Good evening.
WhatsApp Stephen
on 072
702
1702.
We should be watching the markets. Some of us are watching the football.
Stephen John here from Randburg. I heard you announce the football scores earlier. I have coined a phrase called Bafana maths, where Bafana always have to rely on other teams' results in order to qualify for a competition or qualify to go through. Have a good evening.
I can't. You are so absolutely right. You're always waiting for someone else. Always the case. Bafana maths. Oh, I'm going to use that. Thanks very much. All right. Do appreciate that. Okay. Keep them coming. 011 883 0702 021 446 0567. You might well have a view as well about the National Consumer Commission and Temu and that investigation, which I'm still scratching my head a little bit about it because there have been no complaints. I just don't get what the point of investigating something if there's been no complaints. If there was an issue, I think we would know by now. And to say that you can believe and it really still sticks with me that you can trust social media. That's not how I live my life. 11 after 7. Good evening.
702.
702.
Stephen is on the Money Show.
6 to 8 p.m.
Well, you may know that change is coming for companies around environment, social and governance reporting, and that listed and private companies may soon find they have to make mandatory disclosures on what they're doing to ensure they're not harming the environment or society. Advocate Annemarie van der Merwe is an executive chair, or is the executive chair, of the Fluid Rock Governance Group, also a member of the King Committee on Corporate Governance. Annemarie, good evening, and thank you for your time. There's a lot of social pressure around ESG. Do you believe making reporting on this mandatory, is that going to make a big difference to what companies are actually doing?
Evening, Stephen, and evening to your listeners. A big privilege to be on your show tonight, and a very good question that you start off with. And you're quite right, I think, to be cynical. I think most of us are. You know, ultimately, I want to start by saying that the whole idea of ESG reporting or sustainability reporting is not really new. I mean, the JSE, other stock exchanges across the world have been driving this for a number of years. I think that's the first point to make. And then I think also, before I answer your question, I want to say that I also think it depends on the mindset of people, and it will depend on the mindset. And number one, the mindset around what ESG is and understanding it and appreciating that it's not the latest fad out there, that it's really about responsible business or stakeholder capitalism or responsible capitalism, whatever you want to call it, and that it is vital. I mean, there are authors out there that says it's not only a moral obligation, but it's also an extraordinary opportunity for growth and for innovation in a very competitive VUCA world. In other words, if my mindset around it and I see the opportunities, I think that will be critical. Secondly, it's also about the mindset of reporting and the fact that, that cliche about you measure or you manage what you measure. And reporting is actually the outflow of what we've measured. In other words, there's really benefit in measuring. And I think it's John Maxwell that says, speak the truth, transparency breeds legitimacy. So reporting is part of that, building that legitimacy, building trust with the outside world. So if our mindset is right, I actually want to say I don't think we need to be legislated to report. I think we would do the right things. On the one hand, it's actually sad that we have to be forced by law. And if the mindset is not right, I don't think it will result in major difference. I think you'll just see more greenwashing and people not understanding the benefit of it. Because the mandatory side or the regulatory side, if we, again, mindset, look at the positive side of it, if we especially align our regulatory environment with global standards and we've got, standards that are aligned, we can at least also measure ourselves against our peers. And we can, from that perspective, also look at and compare apples with apples, so to speak, between what is happening in the outside world. So I do think there's benefit in regulatory reporting requirements. If the mindset is right, I do think we can get more benefits, but a lot will depend on how it's approached by the corporate world out there.
So, regulations are the stick. The carrot, which is what companies want, is more customers. And won't customers really force this? More and more it's what people talk about, particularly younger people, and they're the ones who'll have to live longer with the consequences of what the rest of us leave behind. And isn't that really, I hate to use a sort of genderized phrase, but the customer is king. The customer will determine, and that surely is what's going to push this, and already is. Annemarie van der Merwe, are you still with us?
Yeah, I lost you there for a few seconds.
So I was just saying the point, isn't it the customer that's really going to push this, and they already are?
You see, I think it's more than the customer, to be quite honest. I think it's stakeholders. It's investors, it is employees, it's society, it's the communities in which we operate. I think more and more there's this push of our stakeholders that want to really see authentic efforts from business to create positive change. And I think that drive will definitely push or should push organizations as well. Because, if you could go back many decades ago, there was the approach of people like Milton Friedman, I think in the 1970s, that says the business of business is business. But then today, you look at all people like Paul Pullman, who was the ex-CEO of Unilever, who actually says, you've got to understand it's not possible to have a strong, functioning business in a world of increasing inequality and poverty. So it actually kind of makes business sense to look at this. But coupled with that is the stakeholder agenda, the stakeholder drive for us to do the right thing. So I think you're 100% right, but it's not only the customer. I think it's investors. Larry Fink, who's the CEO of, probably
BlackRock,
the largest institutional investor, he talks about stakeholder capitalism and how, it's capitalism but driven by mutually beneficial relationships. And that is what organizations should be focusing on. So yes, I think it's customers, but it's also other groups as well.
Do you believe, Anna-Marie, we actually are seeing a real shift? And I'm trying to shift my own cynicism. 10 years from now, is the way in which businesses conduct themselves going to be markedly different to where we were 5 years ago? So what I'm saying is over 15 years, will we actually have seen quite a big change?
Your guess is as good as mine, I suppose. At Flirt Rock, we kind of live the governance, we live the stuff, we basically live in boardrooms, and we see a lot of window dressing, and I think that's why I share maybe some of your cynicism. But we also say at Flirt Rock, that our vision is to live in a society that's fueled by well-governed and responsible corporate citizens. Now, if I take a pessimistic view on that, I may as well go and find a different business to be in. I have to believe that if we continue talking about this, if we continue to kind of try and explain the motivation, the business case for this, that somewhere, even if I just plant the seeds and my grandchildren will one day hopefully reap the benefits of it, we shouldn't stop talking and pushing this agenda.
Anna-Marie, thank you so much. Advocate Anna-Marie van der Merwe is Executive Chair of the Fluid Rock Governance Group, a member also of the King Committee on Corporate Governance, 18 minutes after 7.
Beyond every boardroom is a story waiting to be written. A story of a business and its potential, of a community that thrives, a hospital that serves, and energy that powers millions of dreams. It's a story that only gets better with a partner that has the expertise and solutions to make it a reality. At ABSA CIB, we are invested in your story, and we invite you to write it with us, because your story matters. ABSA, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
One degree defines you as a master of business, the MBA. The life-changing Gibbs MBA empowers you to lead an organization or start your own business within the dynamic African context. Choose from 90 electives and 8 focus areas: general management, entrepreneurship, consulting, manufacturing, digital, humane leadership, healthcare, and climate leadership. For our next information session, go to gibbs.co.za/MBA. Gibbs is a Triple Crown internationally accredited business school in Ilovo, Sandton.
Your office is more than just a place to work. It's a reflection of your success. At Desk and Chair, we help you elevate your workspace with locally manufactured desks and a wide range of chairs to suit your style and budget. Our expert consultants are with you every step of the way, from planning to delivery and assembly. Visit our showroom in Midrand or shop online at deskandchair.co.za. Desk and Chair. Think, feel, work better.
Zahira was tired. So tired, she let her eyes rest a bit. It was bad.
So bad.
She replaced 4 hours of spreadsheets with... It was bad.
So bad.
Too bad she didn't have Yoko Counter. It automatically recon sales, tracks stock, and staff performance.
So good.
Yoko Counter. Super simple POS and payments in one. No contracts, no hidden costs.
The Money Show. Africa Business Focus.
We're supposed to talk about business, but Rotendo, if I may, Nigeria 3, Benin 0, Bafana 2, Rwanda 0, I think stand. We're sort of 61, 62 minutes into those games. Rotendo, you can breathe a little bit. You're allowed, because I'm battling to breathe, I have to tell you.
And, that's the best Africa report. I mean, as of yesterday, Stephen, Egypt was on, I think was the other country that had gone through, but Cabo Verde went on through a few hours earlier.
And they've only got 500,000. I've been to Cape Verde. I bet you've never been there.
You always remind me. And so at the moment, the African countries that have made it, since we're on soccer, is Egypt, Cape Verde, Ghana, Morocco, Tunisia. Those are the sort of 6 countries that have made it. Obviously, we're hoping for South Africa to make it. So nobody from Southern Africa has made it. Nobody from East Africa has made it. So DRC still got a chance. And, this is the first time the World Cup has 48 teams. Usually they have 32 teams. So the bar can't be any lower, Stephen. The bar can't be any lower.
Next, you have to get a visa to get to the US.
So we're praying and hoping for the best. But let's just, one thing is getting there and winning through the groups. But let's watch and see, Stephen. And we cross our fingers.
Okay, to business. We've been talking about local ownership, all sorts of arguments. Botswana has a new rule to promote local ownership of mines.
Yeah, so the reality that's happened in Botswana, I mean, with the lab diamonds, Stephen, we've highlighted the impact that's had on the economy. And from the 1st of October, they've just passed a law with regards to saying that 25% ownership should be given to companies that have got foreign investments in the country. So they have to, it used to be 15%, they've pushed it up to 25%. First preference being given to government. So we're going to see how that's going to have an effect in terms of investment and optimism with regards to investing in Botswana. I understand from the leadership perspective that you have to pivot and say, what can you do to stimulate industrialization and growth? We know Botswana with the past leadership, Stephen, remember that old De Beers debacle and how they wanted to deal with that. And economically it made sense, but politically they also didn't navigate it quite well. If you look at the GDP growth in 2023, Botswana's GDP dropped by 0.3%. In 2025 is expected to drop by another 0.4%. So the new leadership that has come on through a proper and democratic process, which was necessary, is having some challenges. And I guess that's what defines leadership in terms of in tough times, how do you stand? So let's see how these economic reforms stand out, and hopefully they make the right impact both for the country and its people.
And then in Senegal, they've got a company called, it's a plan called New Deal Technologique Horizon.
Technologie in my West French. But the young President Faye, he came on, I think it's been just over a year now, Stephen, and he's been very focused with regards to investment in digital transformation. I mean, there are 4 key pillars that he's focused on, Stephen. Digital sovereignty, digitalization of the public services, looking at the digital economy with the focus of startups and innovative hubs, and also wanting to be a center for digital exports and solutions to the rest of Africa. Just some key stats, Stephen, with regards to what he wants to achieve by 2034. He's looking at creating 500 startups, and bearing in mind Senegal is probably the number is in the top 10 in terms of fintech destination for investment. He wants to create 150,000 jobs and 200,000 indirect jobs. And last year alone, they received probably about $36 million by venture capitalists in the tech startup space. So all in all, Stephen, Senegal is quite focused with regards to wanting to invest and grow with regards to leverage of digital technology. And the Senegalese president is quite focused on that. So they've called it, I won't butcher the name anymore, but basically it's a technology framework with a focus on 2034, and it's got specific goals and achievements that they want to make. So it'll be interesting to see how that rolls out and how it pans out with Senegal, because Senegal is quite a solid country in itself.
In Uganda, so many people are actually borrowing money to pay school fees. I mean, that's quite frightening. There's a sort of way around it.
So just to give a broader context in terms of school fees and the education of state in Africa, and then I'll zone into Uganda. At the moment, if you look at the United Nations and the trends and the reports that they highlight, the challenge you've got in Africa at the moment is that probably by 2030, we need about 15 million teachers to address a deficit of skill in Africa, in the primary and secondary education levels. So why is this relevant to Uganda? The only way you can resolve that deficit of teachers to accommodate the skills you need in terms of equipping children in the primary and secondary schools is your leveraging of digital technology. So Uganda alone, just looking at Uganda as a country, 40% of Uganda's population in terms of parents fell short of having money to educate their kids. So you've got this company called Raha Financial. It's a fintech company, Stephen. And what they've done is that since 2023, they've disbursed about $1 million to help families with regards to giving them money so that they can educate their kids. So on one side, it's a good solution because somebody from an Africa perspective is actually spending time and money to equip and resolve the problem. But on the other side, it's sad because to have an average of 40% of families battling to get money to finance their kids for school is a big problem. But we look on the upside. The way they've walked around with this, Stephen, is that they've taken a risk with regards to borrowing. They've leveraged off the ecosystem of banks and telcos and credit bureaus. So they've taken the risk to provide a solution. For me, it's exciting, but it's still sad that in this day and age, 40% of a country's families with kids can't actually educate their kids. But at least we're moving in the right direction there.
And then in Liberia, they're trying to transform the coastal fish trade.
So the coastal fish trade, but in a specific way, Stephen, the blue economy. There's a combination of NGOs and government that have focused in terms of granting $2 million in grants to about 1,400 women in the fishing industry. And basically some of the key elements that they give them is $400 per month. They also train them in management skills and entrepreneurial support. We must bear in mind, Stephen, that 42% of Africa's GDP is in the informal sector. So when you specifically focus in terms of equipping people in the formal sector, and more importantly, women that play a key role, then it has a ripple effect from a positive social and economic perspective. So in Liberia, there's I think the organization is called the CI organization, has taken on this initiative, and it's actually a positive thing. And some of the loans that they give these women just to support them, it's a rate of 2% interest rate, which is quite significant and makes a positive impact. So an interesting story there, but again, another positive direction in terms of solving Africa's problems.
Dr. Rotendo Ndingwi, thanks very much indeed. Founding Director at Tribe Africa Advisory, author of Rumble in the Jungle Reloaded. 28 minutes after 7.
Coming up,
The Aubrey Masango Show
on 702
and Cape Talk.
Gentlemen, if you don't mind. Aubrey, how's it, man?
Taking me back to the Rumble in the Jungle. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
What's coming up tonight? I mean, what, half an hour or so before we know the final result? Yeah?
Osborne Mulatu, the labor law expert, joins us in the first hour of the show to talk about the factor of attitude when you have shall we say, when there is a dispute against you and you lose, does your attitude in any way give those who are judging you any more ammunition? Andisa Ramabunga, Group Chief Advisor at Ndiso Consulting, joins us to talk about leadership. And we're exploring the beliefs and underlying assumptions that might be limiting your leadership potential. And then in the third hour of the show, in our education feature, Guguntuli, founder and CEO of the Empress Global Academy, joins us to talk to us about how they have come up with a way of leveraging their educational offering to get international exposure to their students. And then, of course, the final hour is an open line, and that's the show tonight, Stevie.
Aubrey, thanks very much indeed. Aubrey Masango, of course, with you from 8 o'clock this evening. Still 2-0 Bafana against Rwanda, still 3-0 Nigeria against Benin. Good evening at 7:30. Don't forget, Warren Ingram is next. Maki, first, good evening to you. The latest in Swane.
That's right, Stephen. The ANC-led multi-party coalition in Swane has thrown its support behind Deputy Mayor Eugene Modise, who is due to face a motion of no confidence. The DA filed the motion against Modise, accusing him of unethically conducting business with the municipality through the company Chaotic Protection Services. Modise says while he did own the company, he resigned from its list of directors before becoming an ANC councillor in 2023. Modise, who is also the finance MMC, participated in an event in Pretoria today where the multi-party coalition gave its feedback to Tshwane residents 1 year since it ousted the DA from power. Modise says he's confident the motion won't pass.
When you take out those people who have got inflated egos and self-entitlement to lead the city, like the racists, they'll forever struggle with nostalgia. Now they are struggling. They are out and they won't come back, by the way. I must just say this. The motion of no confidence is a nefarious move. They did that just recently with the speaker. They failed. We are not fazed by the motion of no confidence.
In the Western Cape, Langa Ward Councillor Lwazi Phakade has called for justice after the murder of his younger brother, Leap Officer Yonke Phakade. Yonke Phakade was off duty on Sunday when he was stabbed by 3 men who left him for dead in Marikana Informal Settlement before stealing his car. Lwazi Phakade attended proceedings at Athlone Magistrates Court today, where 3 men accused of murdering his brother made their first appearance. Carlo Peterson has more.
Langa Ward Councillor Lwazi Phakade says he hopes the murder of his younger brother Yonke Phakade is not in vain. Asavela Ndamasi, Tandalwetu Toto and Asimachle Pama made a brief appearance in court today for Phakade's murder in Marikana Informal Settlement on Sunday. The accused also faced charges of kidnapping after 2 women were found in Yonke Phakade's stolen car. Outside court, Lwazi Phakade lamented his brother's murder.
We do hope that now that the suspects have been arrested, we are going to get justice, and he is going to get the justice that he deserves because he was a dedicated law enforcement officer.
The matter was postponed to the 21st of October to give the state more time to obtain further particulars for a bail hearing. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News.
Staying in the courts, the first accused in the Senzo Mewa trial has shown the Pretoria High Court wounds on his wrist that he claims were inflicted by police during his arrest. Moses Biya was back on the witness stand as the first defense witness. The state believes he was one of the watchmen on the day Mewa was murdered. Initially, Biya told the court that he was assaulted by police who forced him to sign a confession, but said the wounds were not visible. But today, Biya pointed at several marks on his wrists, which he claims the officer who made him sign, Colonel Hlanganyelwa Mboto, saw.
Emveni walapho mayengikhipha so mayebona uMbothi izandla wamangala ukuthi izandla zami bathi zinegazi zilimele kanje ngamtshela athi ayizilimele kanje.
I was then handcuffed, and then Mr. Mboto, he was surprised to see blood in my hands. Then I then explained, he then asked to me am I injured like this? I then said yes.
And in the US, award-winning R&B singer Michael Eugene Archer, affectionately known to his fans as D'Angelo, has died. In a statement released today, his family says the 51-year-old died after a battle with cancer. The singer is leaving behind a legacy of extraordinarily moving music, and his family has asked fans to celebrate the gift of song that he has left for the world. The influential singer was known for pioneering the genre of neo-soul, which blends R&B music with other genres including hip-hop and jazz. His 3 albums won him 4 Grammy Awards. A look at your weather. It's a fine Wednesday in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Temperatures will drop to overnight lows between 15 and 17 degrees and peak at highs between 32 and 34 degrees. A partly cloudy day for Cape Town with moderate southwesterly winds at a low of 13 and a high of 22 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News. The ANC-led multi-party coalition in Tshwane has thrown its support behind Deputy Mayor Eugene Modise, who is due to face a motion of no confidence.
Change will give you blisters. You can wear it in, or it can wear you down. It's exhausting, uncomfortable, pushy. Change is work. Change is motivating. Change is ambitious. Change is the finish line that always moves. Change is opportunity. We're ready to chase it. For over 3 decades, we have been committed to seeking out the best investment opportunities for you, wherever they may be. 91. Investing for a world of change. 91 is an authorized FSP.
Corporates That Care promotes and encourages corporate leaders and all citizens to walk the talk for a better South Africa. Catch Corporates That Care this Wednesday at 10 to 9 featuring Izinga Assist. Their CEO and founder, Derek Lubner, will be in conversation with Bongani Bengwa. Join us every Wednesday as we highlight the efforts of companies and brands dedicated to building our country. Corporates That Care is a Prime Media Cares initiative with 702 and Prime Media Outdoor. 702, let's walk the talk and make a difference together.
James, congrats on the babies.
Yeah, thanks. It's a wild ride.
You're a new dad, 2 babies, 0 sleep, and 1 car that apparently couldn't cope.
Yeah, the hatchback was my baby, but it just didn't have enough space for my 2 new babies.
And are you happy with the price when you sold to We Buy Cars?
Very. We've even got some extra cash to splurge on one of those fancy prams that you basically need a license for.
Good luck, James. We Buy Cars. Geared for family, geared for you.
The Money Show.
Personal Finance with Warren Ingram.
The Personal Finance feature is brought to you by Sanlam Corporate. They take employee benefits personally because when you care, everyone benefits. Sanlam Corporate. All right, just a quick update. So Bafana now 3-0 up against Rwanda. 77 minutes in. Nigeria still 3-0 up against Benin. So hold your breath. Things still going our way. Okay, breathe out now, please. But things still going our way for the football. If we win, if Nigeria wins, my understanding is that we are through and into the 48-team World Cup, and someone somewhere is going to have to queue outside the American consulate in Sandton and ask for visas. But that's how things are standing at the moment. Right, time to talk personal finance. Warren Ingram is a certified financial planner at Galileo Capital, and I can tell you he looks a lot better in person than he does virtually. Warren, good evening. Thanks for coming in tonight.
It's great to be here celebrating with you, I hope I'm not being premature.
Of all the people who would celebrate too early. Warren, of course, is a certified financial planner at Galileo Capital. We're talking tonight about life assurance and when do you cancel it. Now, Warren, English even dribbles me, and I grew up with the language, so clearly I'm easy to be dribbled. But we've got life insurance. I kind of know what that is. Life assurance. Just give us some definitions quickly.
So we get insurance is the stuff that we buy to protect our goods, the things we own, physical. So you buy car insurance to protect your car if you crash it or someone crashes into you. Home insurance if your house burns down or your stuff gets stolen.
Travel insurance if we don't get through.
Travel insurance, in Trump's America. So yeah, you're right. But then the other things that we need to ensure are our ability to earn an income or our life if we're going to die. And that's going to happen to all of us at some point, I guess. That's a fairly safe prediction. And that's called life assurance or disability assurance. So it's kind of, it feels a little bit like semantics, but the one is on your stuff and the other one is about you and your person and so on a life. So short-term insurance is generally the one, and then life assurance is the other.
So, classic example, you're the main breadwinner, you earn the highest income in your family, you're a family of 2 adults and 4 children. You need to make sure that your children have money, and that's what life assurance is for if something happens to you.
Yeah. And typically what will happen in a situation like that is you've got a home, you've got a mortgage. So if you die, you want to know that at least your spouse might not earn the same as you, that the home loan's paid off, and that their salary can at least be used to kind of pay the bills while they get the kids through school, et cetera, et cetera. So it's about that kind of a situation, real protection on a financial item rather than a physical item.
Okay, so for most of us, there's a lot of pressure to make sure we have this. I mean, I do. And we feel that we need to protect ourselves and the people around us. We need to protect our loved ones. It seems quite odd to ever think about ever cancelling that.
You're right. And amazing when you start talking to people that are very close to retirement or even a couple of years into retirement. And then you say, can I just understand? So you've retired, you've got sufficient money, and you've got a life assurance policy. Can you tell me what's the job? Your home loan's paid off. What's the goal? And it's because no one's done the next step. We get told, and it gets drummed into us, fear mongering, all of those things. You're going to die, car accidents, whatever. And all of those are probably valid, good reasons. But we should also be told, like, listen, there is a time when you don't need it anymore. And so I think it's a good conversation to have, because I bet you there are a lot of people sitting out there going, I'm retired. Cost of living is hectic and it's going up all the time. And like, this insurance is expensive, and it gets very expensive as you get older. So it is a good thing to focus on and to cancel if you can, if you should.
Okay. So when this happens, then presumably this is also about how much money you have in the pot. In other words, how many assets you have, how much money you've saved, all of those things.
Yeah. So let's say the very kind of a very rosy example, but one that's possible for most of us is we get to retirement age, we hit 65, we don't have any debts, and we've got enough money to kind of fund our day-to-day expenses for the rest of our life. One of the things that you've got in your expenses is a life assurance policy. And it's you and your spouse, no debts, and you say, well, if I die, I'll leave the assets to my spouse and my spouse will be fine. Then the question is, why do you have life cover? And the reality is you might be able to cancel that life cover entirely. Or alternatively, you might say, well, I don't need as much, so let me reduce. I've got 20 million rand worth of life insurance. Certainly don't need that anymore. Maybe it's 3 or 4 million, just to kind of top up their position if I'm not around. But it's about doing a calculation to say I have got enough, and we buy life insurance because of financial protection. So once you've built up your assets over time, what are you protecting against? You've got the money. You don't want to keep paying money to an insurance company when you could use that money to fund your life.
Is it obvious and clear? I think sometimes people can get a little bit confused because you might think, okay, this person's just started retiring, but they might still do a few more jobs. They might still do this. They might still do that. Work can still come in, and you're banking on that work. If you say you finish at 65, right, you stop formal employment then. But the next 5 years might be, let's say, 2 projects a year. It's not clear when you're going to stop working as it used to be.
It's not, and I think it's maybe the answer is not about how much longer you do carry on working, but actually are your expenses covered by your investment? So the example, you've got a retirement fund of 20 million rand, you're drawing R1 million a year from those and your retirement funds, and that R1 million is fine for your life. Why do you need life cover? The fact that you're going to carry on working and earning and doing gigs and projects and all of those things, that's kind of cream on the top. It makes your position better, but it's only necessary to insure your life if you're in a position where I've retired with 20 million, but I'm spending 10 every year, and I really don't have enough money. So I need to make up a gap between what I need and what I currently have. And I think it's that. So the answer is you've got to do a calculation to say, is the capital that I have sufficient? If it's not, insurance should cover that gap. If I have got sufficient money, then actually I should really look at either reducing or cancelling. And it is a bit of a brave step. I would never, and I just want to be clear on that because you were saying about the distinction. I would never tell someone to cancel their car insurance.
Yeah.
Because even if you drive, a 20-year-old Skadonk and actually you've got enough cash to replace it, what happens if you drive out of the parking lot here and you drive into an Aston Martin that costs 4 million rand and you're responsible?
Then I'm going to laugh.
Well, you're reliable, right? That's
yes.
So you want the insurance there. And so there, please, this conversation is about the life stuff, not the physical stuff, because you want to insure your house and your car and those kinds of things.
Okay, so I might think, well, I have this amount of money in these policies for retirement for my loved ones, for my partner, my spouse, whatever, if I die. But there are other things that I'm not always aware of. So there would be estate duty or capital gains, and I wouldn't necessarily have thought about all of that.
Yeah.
So how would I go about knowing for sure?
And I think it's one of those times where you should be very open to advice, open to getting someone in. So typically one of the things you can do is you can pay a tax person, and you're not paying them to now do a new tax return, but you can say to them, do a calculation for me. Here's my assets. This is my position as it is today. Do a calculation to see what happens if I die tomorrow. What are the taxes that my spouse is going to have to, or my estate's going to have to pay? Effectively, it's your spouse. Do we have enough cash in our estate, or do we have assets that can fund those costs? So it's called an estate duty calculation, and you do it effectively as if the person has just died. And also, it's quite nice getting a non-life assurance person to do the calculation like that, because you're getting an objective view, right? The tax person can't sell you a life policy, I would hope. And so what they're going to do is they're going to give you a tax number and off you go. I think there are quite a lot of online calculators that worry me a bit, so I'm not convinced that they're super reliable. So it's one of the very few times where I would say, even to a DIY investor that's done all the homework, that's run their own finances for their lifetime, don't be afraid to just pay someone to do the calculation for you. It's just once every 5 or 10 years, you could save a huge amount of life assurance premiums by paying a tax person to do a calculation for you. And if it turns out and they say to you, look, your estate's going to be 3 million rand short and you've got a 20 million rand life policy, well, why don't you reduce the cover? Don't cancel it, but say to the life assurance company, I'm happy to carry on, but I only want 3 million rands worth of cover. It's going to have a huge impact on reducing your premiums.
And we shouldn't forget that if you live for 20 years after retirement and you add all of those premiums together, that has a big impact on how much money you have for your retirement. A massive impact, actually.
Yeah. And then, there's a bit of complexity. Of course, there's complexity. It's financial products. There must be complexity. But there are two ways that you buy life assurance. So you can start today and say, I want to insure my life for 20 million rand, and I want to pay the same premium for the rest of my time. So it's called a level premium. So they're going to say to you, your premium's 10,000 rand a month, and it's 10,000 rand for a month for the rest of the time that premium or that policy exists. Or they're going to say to you, I'm happy to let the premium increase with inflation over my time. So what happens is you don't pay 10,000 rand the first month, you pay 2,000 rand. And it feels like a great deal. Then you pay 4,000 rand in 5 years' time, and then you pay 8,000 rand in 5 years after that. And before you know it, your 20 million rand life cover is costing you 30,000 rand a month, and you're 67, and your food bill is going to your life assurance bill. That's the policy you want to be very careful of, because you want to cancel that as soon as you possibly can.
When you do you need to look at the liquidity in your estate, because there are issues if you pass away that, yes, the money is there, but you wouldn't want to sell that asset, or you wouldn't want to sell the property, or whatever, you wouldn't want your spouse to have to sell the property. So do you need to think about some of those things quite carefully?
Yeah. So what, most typically, we might die with a house and a retirement fund. And your retirement fund is paying you a monthly income, and then you've got the house. Now you've got to pay taxes, you've got to pay the executors' fees to the lawyers who wind up your estate, you've got to pay SARS for estate duty. Where does the cash come from? Because your retirement fund, you can't draw like a lump sum out of a retirement fund, and you've got a house. So now you need another liquid asset, which would either be a unit trust or a money market account or an exchange traded fund. If you don't have that, that's a very good reason to have life assurance, because at least on your death that pays out, that creates the liquidity that is used to pay the taxes. The disaster scenario there is you've got none of that, so now you've got to sell the house to pay the government their share of your death duties. So that for me is a very good reason to have life cover even into retirement.
And I presume you don't have to do this all at once. You can do it quite slowly. You can do it from, say, the age 60. Say the moment that your children leave the house, or your last child finishes tertiary. I don't know if they ever do, but I'm told that they do.
Currently, they do leave your pocket somewhere along the line.
Yes, so you would start probably at that point.
Yeah, and I think you want to, you were saying at the start, it feels like quite a big step just to cancel your life assurance. So the nice thing about money is you can be incremental in things. So you can say, well, I've got 20 million rand worth of life cover, and when I was 35, it was very necessary, but at 65, it's not necessary. So what I'll do is I'll go from 20 to 15 to 10 to 5, 2.5 if you still don't buy the deal, but you can do it in steps over a period of time. It should make a huge impact on your costs. And because that to me is the other deal here. You don't want to draw down on those hard-earned retirement savings to pay a life policy that you don't really need anymore. And I think it's the safety of having it, I understand, but I don't want to make myself really cash poor over my retirement to pay for a policy that I probably don't need.
Yeah. Okay. We're talking to Warren Ingram tonight. He is not really that responsible for the fact Bafana are still 3-0 up against Rwanda, although Vushing made it so. Nigeria is still 3-0 up against Benin as well. Not that much longer to go, actually, in those games. We are talking about when do you cancel life assurance. Question, though, from Anne. Warren, she's saying, I'm 52 years old. Is it too late to start saving and investing for my retirement? I think this is we get this kind of question fairly often. It's one I've been asked. It's a very interesting question. We'll have an answer for you, Anne, in just a couple of minutes. 11 minutes now to 8.
Feel the exhilarating power and performance. Feel the anticipation of a new adventure around every corner. Feel the breathtaking wonder of Mzansi's epic scenery. Feel the luxe vibes and the good times. Feel it all and more with the Ultimate Shell V-Power VIP experience. Spend 750 rands 3 times this month and tap your V Plus rewards card for a chance to win one of 5 epic road trip and trek experiences for 2. T's and C's apply.
I think the family needs a break. We've always wanted a holiday home. Maybe we should see what's out there. Imagine waking up to an ocean view in a beautiful villa.
With a big braai area and a spare room for in family visits. If it's on your mind, it's on ours. Partner with a wealth banker will connect you to a home loan with up to prime minus 1.5%. See money differently. Nedbank Private Wealth. We're licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Calling all wedding planners and venues, restaurants, conference centers, and hotels. Do you need tables and chairs? Home in One has it all. Do you need cutlery, crockery, table linen, and restaurant equipment? Home in One has it all. Do you need tents, gazebos, or umbrellas? Home in One has it all. Affordable prices, the latest trends, with 2 branches in Pretoria and Johannesburg. Shop online at homein1.co.za because we're your number one choice. Home in One has it all.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025.
The Money Show.
Personal Finance with Warren Ingram.
Warren Ingram's co-founder of Galileo Capital. Our topic tonight: when is the right time to cancel your life assurance? Dan L., I do see a WhatsApp. We'll get to it in a moment. First, Warren, Ann's question: I'm 52. Is it too late to start saving and investing for my retirement? I mean, if you have a retirement age at 65, 13 years away, not a lot of time suddenly.
It's not a lot of time. I think it's interesting if you look at when people start to take retirement saving seriously, it's round about the age of 48. That seems to be the big average. So I would say, and it's not too late. It's perfect time to take things very seriously. So you've got to start with understanding your cost base. Are you saving anything? Can you start saving? And getting rid of all the big excuses as to why you haven't done it to now. And those might be valid, they might be real. But actually what you've got to say is, I've got 13 years of real work left. But equally, as we were saying before the break, you might be able to carry on working after 65. Maybe not at the same pace, and you might not be able to work 5 days a week. The opportunities might be there to earn some money. So I would hate for you to kind of listen to this and go, it's hopeless, because it's not. That's not true. The answer is you save as much as you possibly can now, and then try and make some plans for what you can do as part-time work. Because if you can let that capital grow without drawing on it, once you've hit your official retirement age, and you can get by on your part-time work without saving anymore, and you let the capital just grow steadily on its own, eventually the money's making money babies, and by the time you may not be able to work at the age of 70, you've got sufficient money. So you might need to make some radical adjustments in your lifestyle now, but if you've got nothing at 52, make some big calls now, make those big decisions, take the pain now, because you don't want to try and do that at age 67. You want to do it now.
You could also work out what you would still be able to do up until 70, and so from 65 to 70, you can be doing that.
Yeah, and also just understanding that you've got so much skill that you might not value, and you've got time. So one of the things that people forget is, like, a small business is always desperate for skilled, experienced people, but they can't afford to pay them a massive salary. You arrive going, well, I can give you half a day twice a week, and what can you afford to pay me? And I can give you the time and experience that I've got, but you need to be valuable. In other words, you still need to stay familiar with how technology works. I'm not saying you have to become a programmer, but you can't be the person that goes, can you just show me how to work this email? Like, you don't have to know how to, like the basics you do need to stay up to date with, so that you are valuable on day one, not a drag on day one.
The question from Dan L. on the WhatsApp line: hi, is a living annuity exempt from estate duty? It's a great question, actually.
Oh, I love it. So it's one of the big benefits of retirement funds. Whether you've got a retirement annuity or a living annuity, it's entirely exempt from estate duty. So it means that you owe SARS no money, and you like, if you've got a husband and wife and the husband dies and his living annuity is worth 20 million rand, the entire 20 million goes to his wife, and it's exempt from his estate. If she dies and nominates their children, exempt from estate duty again. Also, the lawyers don't make any money because you don't charge executors fees on that. So it's a very efficient wealth transfer vehicle, and SARS likes this. They're okay with this. This is not a loophole. They actually incentivize us to put money into retirement funds.
Okay. While you've been talking, final whistle.
Bless you.
That was just anticipation. So final whistle in both games. 3-0 to Bafana for them against Rwanda, and then Nigeria beating Benin 4-0. The upshot, of course, is that Bafana are through to the World Cup. And so there'll be some celebrations, and then, of course, the long, hard slog to get past the first round, I imagine, will begin, and there'll be a big focus. But well done to Hugo Broos and his men after what's really been a very difficult campaign with all sorts of typical kind of, SAFA-inspired controversy. All right, Warren, we were talking a little bit about reducing life assurance sort of gradually. So you do need to make sure you have something for a little bit longer than you might think. You do need some sort of insurance for a while, but you need to start thinking about it quite cleverly.
You do, and equally that you can find ways to mitigate the cost. What really bothers me with this stuff is it's so expensive as we get older.
Yeah.
And so let's just use the example of the 20 million. You might say, I actually only need 5, and I don't want to cancel this policy. But you've got adult children who are working. There's a deal to be done to say to your kids, why don't you pick up 2/3 of this cost? I'll pick up 1/3. And my estate will then be looked after. But on my death, you guys will inherit quite a lot of cash extra that I don't need. Are you guys happy? Just be very careful that your kids still love you and they don't want to take you out. But there is a way of working a plan around that. If that's not possible, your children don't have enough money, then step down is important. I think there are a lot of people that will get to, let's say, age 62, they're sufficiently funded for retirement, but they carry on paying the premium because they haven't thought about this. That actually, it's not, you've done the job. You don't have to keep overfunding yourself. You don't have to keep overinsuring. I just want to, I feel like I have to keep putting a disclaimer here. You need to do some calculations. Don't just say you believe that you're okay. Do the numbers, get some advice, pay the tax people to give you a tax calculation or an estate planner to do that. Shouldn't be that expensive, but you could save yourself a huge amount of money over your retired life by doing this.
You also need to speak to the beneficiaries. You need to make sure that they're part of this every step of the way, because they mustn't think they're getting the 20 million that you were insured for when you were 40, when you're now 70.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's if it's your life partner, yes, they need to know, they need to be in agreement, but they're invested in the reducing costs. If it's children, yeah, have the conversation and make it their responsibility if they want the money that they start picking up those premiums.
It's the kind of thing that people might easily forget to do. I've retired, a nice watch, and now they actually, are used to kind of living in a particular way. It's one of those things that can almost fall underneath the radar. Where I'm going with this is, it's a reminder of something that you talk to us about from time to time, is that you need to do a kind of annual check on everything, whether it's life insurance or whatever it is that you have.
Yeah, and just ask, is this necessary? And just because that's what you've always done, what you've always done might be good for a period of time and then very unproductive later in life. So do the health check, make sure it's okay for you and that it's still required.
Warren Ingram, thanks very much indeed. Certified financial planner at Galileo Capital, and talking tonight, of course, about when is the right time to cancel your life assurance. Decision makers like yourself help the South African workforce plan beyond payday. The Sanlam Umbrella Fund gives employees a clear path from payslip to pension with free retirement benefits, consulting, and other value-added benefits. You get supported every step. They get dignity in retirement. That's care in action. And when you care, everyone benefits. Partner with Sanlam Corporate by visiting sanlamcorporate.co.za. Build South Africa's age of confidence together.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB, proud sponsor of the Absa Africa Financial Markets Index 2025.
Well, confirmation after tonight's football matches that South Africa is top of Group C. We're just a point ahead of Nigeria. They did beat Benin 4-0. Bafana beat Rwanda 3-0 in the end. So we are through to the World Cup, which is going to be in the US, Canada, and Mexico. And I imagine will come with a sideshow or two, he says, without even bothering to check his crystal ball. In the United States, markets turning slightly despite concerns around the China-US relationship. The Dow Jones up 0.77%, the Nasdaq down 0.15%, the S&P 500 up 0.27% so far tonight. Watching that closely, of course, watching the relationship between the US and China very closely as well. A lot to come with Aubrey Masango tonight. He is looking at labor law as one of the things. You might want to make sure that you do stay with him through until midnight. Thanks for being with us tonight. Back tomorrow. Good evening. It's 8 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good evening. I'm Maki Malapo. Suspended Deputy Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya says the allegations of corruption against him are part of an internal succession battle within the South African police. He says the whole case against him is an attempt to block his rise within the police's senior management and in the country's law enforcement agencies. Sibiya was defending himself against allegations of corruption and undue influence during the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee investigating police malfeasance made by KwaZulu-Natal top cop Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Babalo Ndenze has more.
Shadrack Sibiya is wrapping up his